Buoyant UFA TV income helped Premier League clubs' revenues rise 9% to a record £3.6 billion in the 2015-16 season, according to analysis from Deloitte. It says broadcast earnings of £1.9 billion accounted for more than half of the top-flight clubs' total revenues. A new domestic TV deal which kicked in last year means overall revenues continue to grow strongly, it added. For a third straight season, clubs' combined operating profits exceeded £500 million, but wages rose 12% to £2.3 billion. Even in the final year of its old broadcast contracts, Premier League revenues continue to set new records, said Dan Jones, partner in Deloitte's Sports Business Group, which has unveiled its latest annual review of football finance. He said the broadcasting boost to revenues in 2015-16 was mainly down to European Federation UFA increasing its payments to Premier League clubs by £100 million. Source: Deloitte Annual Review of Football Finance 2017. Mr. Jones said Premier League clubs were now reaping the benefit of a new broadcast rights cycle which started in 2016-17, plus new commercial agreements, and matchday revenue growth from new and expanded stadia. Deloitte says it now expects total Premier League clubs' revenues to be more than £4.5 billion in 2017-18. Meanwhile, Premier League net debt fell for the third consecutive season, by £125 million 5% to £2.2 billion at the end of the 2015-16 season. However, while Premier League clubs returned to a collective pre-tax loss in 2015-16, Deloitte said this was the result of exceptional, or one-off, accounting adjustments, without which clubs collectively would have broken even. One example of these one-off adjustments was Chelsea making a big financial provision to cover the cost of the early cancellation of their kit deal with Adidas. We fully expect that Premier League clubs will collectively achieve record levels of profitability in the seasons to come, said Mr. Jones. In the Championship, overall revenues increased to a new record level of £556 million in 2015-16, and have risen by 74% in the past decade. But for the third time in 4 years, clubs spent more on wages £561 million than they generated in revenue, resulting in a record operating loss of £261 million. This follows 2 seasons where losses have been reduced. Clubs in the Championship stand to see their revenues jump by at least £170 million from promotion to the Premier League, rising to over £290 million if they survive one season. But Deloitte says there is a danger that Championship clubs may continue to be tempted to spend excessively relative to their revenues, particularly on wages. Former Chelsea captain John Terry has signed for Aston Villa on a reported £60,000 a week, plus further cash incentives should they win promotion. Yet Deloitte points out that Huddersfield Town's promotion at the end of the 2016-17 season shows any Championship club can reach the Premier League, regardless of their budget. And they point out that in 2015-16 Huddersfield had the Championship's fourth lowest wage costs. Including Football League clubs, the top 92 professional teams in England generated a record £4.4 billion in revenue in 2015-16, Deloitte said. The 92 clubs contributed £1.6 billion to UK government in taxes in 2015-16, up from £1.5 billion the year before. In Scotland, despite Celtic's failure to qualify for the UEFA Champions League group stages for the second consecutive season, Scottish Premiership clubs' aggregate revenues grew 10% to €149 million. Celtic continued to generate more than 50% of total revenues as they won the league for a fifth consecutive season, and Deloitte says their participation in the 2016-17 UEFA Champions League group stages will result in a substantial uplift in revenue. China's investment and influence in football has been growing in both domestic clubs playing squads and infrastructure, and foreign club purchases and sponsorship. In their 2016-17 winter transfer window, Chinese Super League clubs spent more than £300 million on players, including Oscar's transfer from Chelsea to Shanghai SIP and Odion Ialo's move from Watford to Changchun Yatai. But Deloitte says some recent political moves could curtail this player spending boom. In January, the government body responsible for regulation of sport in China said that a cap on player salaries and transfer fees would be established to control irrational investment. That month, the Chinese Football Association also implemented a stricter rule allowing only 3 foreign players to participate for a club in a Super League fixture. This replaced the previous 4+1 rule, which allowed 4 foreigners plus 1 non-Chinese Asian player in a matchday squad. And in June 2017, the Chinese Football Association said clubs that were loss-making and spent in excess of 45 yuan c. £5 million on a foreign player must pay an amount equivalent to the excess into a national fund to develop young Chinese players.